John Fetterman is doing as well with Pennsylvania Democrats as the New York Giants are as liked in the state of Pennsylvania or the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I mean, just look at this. Among Pennsylvania Democrats, the net approval of Fetterman, back in 2023, he was a Democrat liberal darling. He was at plus 68 points. Look at how low he has fallen down to negative 40 points. He's down there with the Titanic among Democrats in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And, put a comparison point on it. We always talk about how Chuck Schumer is not well liked by the Democratic base nationwide. Chuck Schumer has a net popularity rating of about -2 points.
John Fetterman has suffered a humiliating 108-point drop in popularity in his own state of Pennsylvania. And that is truly unprecedented. After running as a progressive, being elected as a progressive, Fetterman has infamously pivoted to the right, which is most likely the source of the massive decline. And we'll get into more and also what this might say about his reelection hopes. But Cenk, what do you make of this?
108-point swing is legendary. I've literally never seen that in 30 years of covering politics. That is a triple point switch in the negative direction. Now, when he was at 60, he was doing things we agreed with, 68. Now, when he's at -40, he's doing the exact opposite. Gee, I wonder who's right about which way the direction of the Democratic Party should go. But after Jordan's done giving you some of the facts here, I want to share with you guys another stunning statistic, which has absolutely connected to what Fetterman's negative numbers are about, the real reason he's that low. But first, give him all the facts, Jordan.
Well, another Pennsylvania native, Governor Josh Shapiro, is trying to avoid the Fetterman trap, but can't help but to continue bungling his own message on Israel. And as you just heard, he pushed back against the notion that Israel is an apartheid state during his appearance on the Higher Learning podcast. And host Van Lathan pushed back.
I disagree with that.
I know you do.
I do not think that they have all of the same rights. I think that there are both soft violations of their rights and more structural violations of their rights. You can look at things as the nation state law. There's many different ways that the government of Israel, both structurally and culturally, establishes the supremacy that they have to have in their society in order for it to operate the way that it does, because the math just doesn't work out.
Okay, I mean, Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza don't have the right to vote. They also aren't afforded self-determination or the ability to form their own state. And the 20% of Israel's Arab citizens might be able to vote, but they aren't treated equally either. They face systemic discrimination, socioeconomic disparities, and inequalities in housing, education, and municipal funding. While integrated into sectors like healthcare and academia, they experience social marginalization, heightened security surveillance, and increased tensions. Now, of course, no one is buying what Shapiro is selling. No one who actually understands or follows the issue. Aaron Rugenberg, contributing editor of the New Republic, pointed this out on X. Let's talk reality. A Jewish baby born today in the West Bank community will have full rights in Israel, a vote in national elections, and access to civilian courts. A Palestinian baby born in that same community will have no democratic rights, tight restrictions on their movement, frequent harassment from settlers, and no access to justice beyond what Israel's unaccountable military courts mete out. That's apartheid. So Governor Shapiro is either lying or ignorant of the reality on the ground in Israel. And he made similar statements while on Pod Save America. Take a look.
You mentioned apartheid, right? Or that was the comment that was made. And I would just say, as we engage in that, we should first address this fundamental question of what do we want in that region? And if we really want peace, and I believe you want that, then we've also got to be acknowledging that language matters here, that words matter. And then we've got to use words that are actually rooted in reality and are able to bring the temperature down to create a space for that peace, for that opportunity. And so that's how I view this entire conflict.
Before we go on, I want to point out he did another interview that same weekend with a friend of mine, Josh Green, who goes by Josh the Progressive on Instagram. And he flat out denied that there's a genocide taking place and used that same, we need to be careful about what words we use. Brother, I'm not worried about words right now when we're seeing what's happening. The label is beside the point, but the fact that you can't even acknowledge it shows what your intentions are. And it's a big deal that he's doing this, considering that he wants to run in 2028, and that a YouGov poll found that 29% of Democrats who voted for Biden in 2020 withheld their votes in 2024 over the administration's inability to end the war on Gaza. These findings were provided to the DNC as part of their 2024 autopsy, which they then refused to release, prompting Axios to report in December of 2025. The DNC officials said they're keeping the report private to maintain the party's focus on winning back Congress in the 2026 midterms and avoid further internal conflict over its chaotic 2024 cycle. Then in a follow-up piece last month, it was reported that activists from the IMEU Policy Project told the DNC that the Biden-Harris administration's support for Israel was a factor in the party's loss because it drained support from some young people and progressives. Hamid Bendas, a spokesperson for the IMEU Policy Project, said that during the meeting, the DNC shared with us that their own data also found that policy was, in their words, a net negative in the 2024 election. Two other senior aides at the pro-Palestinian organization also said the DNC had drawn that conclusion. Axios independently verified that Democratic officials conducting the autopsy believed the issue harmed the party's standing with some voters. But it's important to clock what Shapiro is attempting to do. He's message testing on Israel to see what he thinks could be more palatable to Democratic voters who are increasingly wary of our long-standing relationship with Israel. As put by Jewish Insider, the point of the discussion seemed to be to demonstrate a kind of modeling that Shapiro, a Jewish Democrat who has long been both a supporter of Israel and a critic of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, can show Democrats how to have a difficult yet transparent and empathetic conversation amid deep disagreements over Israel's actions in Gaza. Shapiro is making clear that if he runs for president, he does not intend to sidestep the party's most fraught foreign policy debate. He intends to shape it. So the exercise here is simple. Reframe criticisms of Israel as not being anti-Semitic, but as not being sufficiently anti-war. Make Zionism cool again. Soften your rhetoric and let naysayers know that you are sympathetic to them. Keep the conversation centered around how Israel is discussed here at home and barely on their actions at the global stage. Cenk, is this going to work?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Because of the number that I promised. But before I even do that, I got to say Jordan was right. So Jordan and I had a debate as to who Kamala Harris should pick as her VP. I said Josh Shapiro. I had written an op-ed about that, and boy was I wrong. So he had done some good things in Pennsylvania, and that's what I hung my hat on. But I had no idea that he was this ridiculous on the issue of Israel and war and foreign policy. So guys, the number I was alluding to is 13% of Democrats now have a positive view of Israel. So why would you be against 87% of your voters? Only if you have a loyalty to another country. I mean, that's just obvious. And the polling that Jordan referred to and the autopsy they did of Kamala Harris's campaign was crystal clear. If we had more time, we can give you all the data around it. But it cost her the election. It caused a tremendous number of young people to switch their votes or to not vote. And look at the control that Israel has in this country. Kamala Harris knew that there was a good chance she was going to lose the election because of her loyalty to Israel, which the great majority, even back then, of Democratic voters did not want. And she said, "No, I'm loyal to Israel, and I'm not loyal to my own voters, and I'm not loyal to independents, to American voters overall." And she was willing to lose the election to bow her head to Israel. It is unbelievable. And now, what a giant liar Kamala Harris is. She is now maintaining, oh no, privately, I was telling Joe Biden that he should care more about the Palestinians. Oh, shut up. Okay, number one, you didn't do any of that. You're a giant liar. Number two, what do I care about your private whisperings to Joe Biden, who had dementia and loved Israel more than almost any politician in America? Would he constantly come out and be like, "Oh, I am a Zionist"? Yeah, I got it, Joe. I got it, right? We all got it. And look at how little they care about actually defeating Donald Trump, actually protecting you, actually serving you. They're like, no way, Israel is way more important than that. We'd rather lose the election to Donald Trump. And they did. So now back to Josh Shapiro. I watched some of these interviews and they are comical, man. So let's start with this. The clip that you saw there where, oh no, Israel's not an apartheid state. They treat Muslims great. Brother, you're gonna have to come up with a lie better than that. That is preposterous. So he's talking about Arab Muslims and Christians that are inside of Israel proper and how they have some rights. They're harassed nonstop inside Israel, okay? So that's already a huge lie, but he's not counting 5.5 million Muslims and Christians who live in the West Bank and Gaza Strip. What are their rights? Zero. And Israel just slaughtered Gaza, destroyed every building in Gaza, and stole 53% of it, which they're never giving back. And Josh Shapiro is gonna tell us how great Israel is to Muslims? Look, not only are you disgustingly biased in this case, not only is it obvious that you will do just like Biden and Trump and hand a country over to Israel based on this nonsense propaganda, but you're also insulting our intelligence. You think we're stupid? In all of the, we didn't show it in the videos, but in every one of these interviews, he starts with, now the most important question is Israel's right to exist. No, it's not. That's an elementary question. Everyone who's a normal Democrat thinks Israel does have a right to exist. They just don't have a right to constantly attack their neighbors, kill their neighbors, and take their land. This isn't about Israel's right to question. That's not the question is, do the Palestinians have a right to exist? So when you start with, does Israel have a right to exist when they already exist, they have Iron Dome, they have nukes, and they have the biggest military in the Middle East, you're framing the question in a purposely disingenuous way. So you're making it seem like Israel's the victim. Oh my God, does Israel have a right to exist? You're gonna wipe out Israel. That's why they have to murder all their neighbors. No, he's totally, I thought he was an American. No, he works for Israel. That is the most disingenuous thing. And it really, I'm like personally insulted that he thinks that we're that stupid, that he could frame it in a tricky way with, does Israel have a right to exist? And reframe the whole conversation in favor of Israel. Brother, 13%, wake up. We don't like Israel, and not because they're Jewish. Stop lying about that. That is a further insult. That's saying Democratic voters are filled with hatred in their heart and that we're all bigots. What a disgustingly insulting thing to say to your own voters. That's why Fetterman's at minus 40%. That is a favorability. That is unreal. That's because he's spitting in our face. And now Josh Shapiro, a Democrat from the same state, doing the same exact thing. Last two things. He says, words have meaning. We have to be talking about words. Yeah, okay, words do have meaning. That was a genocide. And you won't say it because apparently you're more loyal to Israel than to Democratic voters or America. Words do have meaning. Okay, it was a genocide, it is apartheid, and Israel did start these wars. But you want to use words to protect your beloved Israel instead of your voters, your state, or your country. And finally, he said, bring the temperature down. Are you kidding me, Josh? He signed missiles. And now he's blaming everyone who's legitimately criticizing Israel. And he's trying to make it seem like 87% of Democratic voters are anti-Semites. And you're bringing the temperature down? You know what you should do, Josh? Maybe you get your beloved Israel to turn the temperature down and stop invading 7 of their neighbors. They just displaced 1 million people in Lebanon, Muslims and Christians, and Shapiro's pretending Israel's the victim. Get your stupid army, the IDF, Josh, to bring the temperature down by stop murdering your neighbors and ethnically cleansing Lebanon and Gaza and stealing more and more land. And yes, it is stealing. Don't tell me that's anti-Semitic. We have eyes. it breaks my heart that it happens to be a government that calls itself the Jewish state, but they do not represent all Jewish people. We have tons of Jewish people in our families, in our friends, in our audience, and I love them. Don't do this. Don't pretend you're doing this in their name. This is a fascist government, and the map has expanded and expanded. Their territories expanded while he's pretending they're doing self-defense. No, under no circumstances should you vote for Josh Shapiro. Sorry, Jordan, you were totally right. Look, guys, we're open-minded on the Young Turks, okay? And so facts matter. You have to take facts, and now that we've seen who the real Josh Shapiro is, I have taken those facts into account, and my opinion has changed. And you should do likewise. Do not get stuck in positions that are wrong. If you see facts, move to the position that is correct. Reality matters, and that's what we care about on the Young Turks.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.